Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the designer, Courtney Cronin back at it again. Courtney, this feels familiar. All too familiar. There were some subtle differences, but we got to talk about, as Ben Johnson has brought out, you got to do the small things right. There was a lot of small things that led to a big loss here versus the Minnesota Vikings. We got to break that down today and look at some of the struggles that this Bears team had that, I'll be honest with you, are very concerning as you move forward, because it's not talking about scheme. It's talking about player execution. We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Today's episode, as always, brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, or they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. Las Vegas style gaming, just 30 minutes from Soldier Field. Exit 6, I-80, 94. Courtney, I was hoping not to be doing one of these this early in the season. How are you?
Yeah, it feels like deja vu. We've been down this road with this team before where we've seen them build up big leads going into the fourth quarter. And they have shown us that you can't have the mindset that any lead is safe with these Chicago Bears. And I know it's a different coaching staff. They've tried to change the culture. They've tried to change some of the personnel. They've tried to change the execution here. But a lot of it remains the same. This team has to learn how to close out ball games that they can't right now. And so much of that stems from a lot of issues that we saw last year that kept rearing their head yesterday. Obviously, the penalties are something that maybe not even like a last year thing, but certainly a current climate thing with what's been going on in training camp. I don't buy the notion that you can just change who you are because the regular season's starting. And I didn't find many guys wanting to admit to that having a carryover effect in the game. I do feel like it absolutely did, because 12 penalties for 127 yards, when most of those penalties, especially the false starts in the first half, and then the defensive pass interference penalties, it led to 10 points. A lot, not that much of that happened on offense early. So I think it's kind of alarming that the things that Ben Johnson had been warning were going to be an issue and saying that needs to get cleaned up, it didn't. And that's the result that you have tonight last night. And it's, certainly a really bad way to start off the season when there had been so much goodwill built up over 6 weeks about the quarterback, about the new head coach, and the direction the team was going in. Yeah,
100%. I left last night. I feel good about the coach that you have, Ben Johnson's scheme. Sure. I think there's some question marks that you have there, but listen, Courtney, we didn't spend last night going, nobody's open. Who the heck is Caleb Williams supposed to get the ball through? The elephant in the room here is Caleb Williams did not have a good game after that first half. He went 13 for 16 in the first half. You felt pretty good. Yeah, there were some bumps and bruises in the road in that second quarter a little bit, but for the most part, you felt good coming out of that first half. In the second half, Caleb Williams, 8 for 19, 98 yards, 76 quarterback rating, did end up throwing that touchdown at the end there, even though, it was a little too late. But even in that good moment, you're reminded of an overthrow for DJ Moore that puts you in the end zone with 2:24, I believe, on the clock, which in that situation probably leaves you with a minute to go. Like, we're going to talk about it here, Courtney, but there were so many of the small things that led to a big loss. And the number one thing for me, we could talk about the penalties. We could talk about, getting behind the 8 ball. There is no play call for 3rd and 30. The routine throws have to become routine for Caleb Williams. And right now they're just not.
No. And I mean, you go back to, I know you mentioned the DJ one late, but let's go back to the second quarter, the 4th and 3.
Yeah.
That he sails it is, and I will not stand for anybody saying the receiver needs to run a better route. Caleb had a clean pocket. That is an NFL quarterback level throw that you absolutely have to make, and he was off target. That's unacceptable. And I understand Ben Johnson wanting to carry that mindset into the games where he's going to be aggressive. They're going to be an attacking offense. That's what they did in Detroit, and he did it in the preseason. He said that's going to be their MO. With a quarterback like this who has not shown you yet he can handle those sorts of moments, you got to take the points. How many points did they lose by last night? I keep saying tonight. How many points did they lose by? 3.
Well, we were all up late, Courtney, so it is tonight for us.
I mean, there's your field goal right there. And what did they do before halftime? Instead of chasing points, or instead of chasing the touchdown, they went and took the points when they were there, because I think Ben started to realize, for as good as Caleb was on that first drive and for as good as he was in his first 10 completions, he started to wane. Yeah. And you could tell what was about to happen. Those completions, though, the incompletions, the one to Moore, the one to Cole Kmet later in the game, like, Pat, he's not making those throws with a defender in his lap. He's making those throws from a clean pocket. That's what you're talking about with referring to like routine throws he's got to make. If you're an NFL quarterback, that's inexcusable. And he knows that. And so I feel like that's something that is very alarming for the Bears fans out there today who are asking the question of, do they have the right quarterback? Those are the moments where I think people are going to look at that and be pretty concerned, because that doesn't – coaching changes, whatever, being put in the right offense, whatever, like, that doesn't matter. You should make that – you can make that throw in a bad offense. You can make that throw in a good offense. That's on you. And the accuracy issues are one of my bigger takeaways for some of the things that I would say raised red flags about how and why they lost on Monday.
Courtney, on that 4th and 3, when you watch it on the tape, and you can say DJ needs to run a better – he's so open it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, come on. Like that's such a excuse from anybody who doesn't want to blame the quarterback in that instance. You're searching for an excuse. It's not valid.
Here's my biggest issue with it. Caleb hits his step on time. DJ out of the break. Caleb starts to make the throw on time. Ball is out of his hand on time. It sails. It wasn't timing. It wasn't DJ being off. It wasn't that the offense didn't have that there was dysfunction happening up front or anything. He missed. And last night, listening to him in the press conference, he kept saying, those things happen. Those things happen. Those things happen. They do happen. But when you're the franchise quarterback and supposed to be this guy that is the top tier talent that I do believe you have in there, they don't happen that often. We don't see many games where Joe Burrow misses passes like that on a week in and week out basis. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they don't miss those passes routinely. And those are the passes that we need to see Caleb Williams start to hit routinely. How many times have we talked about the overthrow at the end of the game? And it all comes down, again, one of these passes hit, that DJ Moore pass could have been a touchdown. The one where end of game could have been a touchdown and put you in a position to go down and score again. Like, there's too many of these moments where you start to see it compound and eventually you go, dang it, we just ran out of time.
Yeah, I mean, the one to Cole Kmet's a great example too. One right over the middle. Like, it was almost at the exact same clean pocket. I know that somebody had broken through eventually between the center and left guard, but Caleb had time. That's not an excuse. And I think the fact that you keep seeing those sorts of miscues, and that's on the quarterback. It's not on a miscommunication for like somebody ran the wrong route. Somebody ran, like, here's the tell every single time. When we're dissecting these games and you can tell that the receiver didn't run the wrong route there or that it wasn't on the receiver, that guy's not getting any questions about it post-game in the locker room. It's only a question for the quarterback, because there's only one person who was at fault on that. And you can say what you want about it being a team game and the receiver might need to create a little bit more separation. Go look at the numbers. Cole had a lot, like 7 yards of separation. We create but the post snap probability of that was about 7 yards, and it was going to be about a 7-yard completion. That gets you further down the field. It puts you in a better situation to be able to go down and score. It's missed, like, it's almost like, all right, well, one thing was fine. Chalk it up as whatever. Like, they turned the ball over on downs. Okay, well, that keeps happening. This is where you can start to like tack on every single thing that cost this team in the end. And it became an onslaught of of not just penalties, but of all of the little things that really cost this team. And that's alarming to me, because Caleb's in there talking about everybody do your 111. Like, well, what about you too? And I know he knows that. I know he wasn't at all trying to skirt responsibility. I'm not trying to make it sound like that, but it ultimately, when you talk about that, it's on the quarterback, because the accuracy issues to go from 13 to 16 to having the highest off target percentage of any quarterback in week 1, by the end, there's one guy that ultimately that falls on.
Your roof's got more layers than a conspiracy podcast.
Is that a sandwich wrapper?
Ah, yes. Vintage 1988. It really builds character.
Avondale Roofing. Inspect smarter, dig deeper, and get to the core of your roof's health.
And I think there's a lot to, looking at some of the other things in this game as well, right? I Courtney, coming into this, I asked Ben Johnson about it going into week 1. Listen, you haven't fixed the pre-snap issues at all. Is there a hope that, maybe having 5 consistent guys out there changes that? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say 127 yards in penalties because that's not what the offense had. And if Caleb Williams throws one of those touchdowns that Ben Johnson schemed up, you probably win this game.
Yeah.
But 40 yards in offensive penalties is going to be very difficult to overcome, and especially when it's coming from one of the guys that is supposed to be a staple of your offense. I thought, looking at Darnell Wright, I've said it a couple of times in the preseason here, and listen, I can't even come in here and say Braxton Jones was a problem. Braxton Jones had a great game.
They had a great plan for him. They were match protecting into that side, whether it was Cole Kmet over there, whether it was Theo Benedette reporting as the extra lineman.
Yes.
That's going to fall through the cracks here, but that was a very smart, wise game plan that they're probably going to have to replicate going forward. I mean, certainly against Aiden Hutchinson this week, but yes, to digress on that,
and you've got a guy that can do it in Theo Benedict. You understand why you kept a guy like Theo Benedict. I felt good about the game plan, but on that right side, I understand there's one penalty. That holding penalty is asinine.
Yeah, it was.
But outside of that, Darnell Wright did not look like, as we've said, all pro Darnell Wright, as he was dubbed coming out of the draft in week 1 of this season. And by the way, we're in year 3 of this. At some point, those comments from Dan Richard felt very relevant last night in that game.
Yeah. I mean, when they talk about losing focus, I mean, it was the false start. It was 1 of 4 in the first half. And, that holding thing, you got to know, you got to sell that thing better. And maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But it's frustrating because it felt like the lack of focus there became the snowball effect, because it was the holding call, and then it was the overthrow of Cole over the middle, then it was the intentional grounding, and then it was the missed field goal. The game flipped in 49 seconds at the end of the 3rd quarter, and then the first play of the 4th quarter, they missed the 50-yard field goal, which, by the way, I know special teams is not going to get off the hook on this, but that was horrible. They get an F for what happened last night, from the blocked punt to the missed field goal to not kicking the ball through the end zone or through the up. It was so bad. But
we've watched a lot of Cairo. Have we seen him kick the ball through the end zone a lot? I don't feel like I remember a lot of Cairo kicking the ball through the end zone in previous years.
I know they talk a big game about his leg strength and that it's the strongest it's ever been. I don't know if he could do that. I really don't.
I think that I'll say this. The first 4 weeks, and Ben Johnson talked about this, knowing what the team is going to be, Courtney. And as we continue to get in this first game felt like Ben Johnson putting a lot of guys in positions to say, okay, this is the expectation. Can you deliver here? He didn't shy away from Cairo Santos to take the cop out of, you kick it out of bounds, you take it at the 40, and you run out. No, the expectation is that Cairo has to be strong enough to kick this out of the end zone in these moments. Let's see if he can. And if he can't, guess what? Somebody start breaking out the kicker tape, because we're going to be needing one here soon. There's going to be a lot of turnover on this team, and I think that Ben Johnson, not to say it's going to happen this year, but I think that Ben Johnson is going to put guys in a position to do what he's asking right away, so that he can see, okay, what can we expect as we go through the rest of this season? What can we lean on? What can't we lean on? And what do we need to change when we get to the end of this year?
Yeah, and that's to find those answers out sooner rather than later is obviously what you want to do. But it just makes me think, some of the answers were obvious all the way, all along. Yep. And it just, now you find them out in really painful moments. There's going to be trial and error. You mentioned the first month of the season. Ben Johnson's been the first one to say, and it obviously buys him some time, but be patient. It's not going to look great. There'll be times where it doesn't look great, where, we want to play our best football, the cliche, December and January. But what you saw, some of the stuff was so rudimentary, and just errors that doesn't matter when it's going to happen. You're not going to be able to overcome that stuff. That worries me about their ability to finish games, because they have not shown that they are a capable team of doing that. And they may be young in certain spots, but they've got a lot of talent. a lot of talent around the quarterback. And if he can't maximize that talent to finish games, to be able to protect a 17-6 lead, to be able to extend a 17-6 lead multiple times, and you fail at that, like that's when it became 17-12, I feel like there was a collective groan inside of Soldier Field of like, here we go again. And the texts that I was getting from Bears fans, from people I knew watching the game afterwards, were like, this feels like last year. I can tell you how this script is going to go. And that's because of the execution issues. It's because of this, once you go off script, it feels like they have no answers. And I don't understand why they can't stay in control of a game when the other team was against it the entire time. They couldn't run the ball. JJ McCarthy was rattled. Your defense was doing its job. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's almost like when they let their foot off the gas for like 1 second, they are inviting their opponent to come just take it from them. And they put up no fight against that. I thought it was really interesting. You mentioned Darnell Wright. I asked him after the game about what is it like when you see that lead just squander, like it just went away. And he said, it felt like we were looking around waiting for somebody to be the spark. That's a problem when you don't have some alpha coming in, and usually that has to be your quarterback, it was with JJ McCarthy. You heard Brian O'Neill, the right tackle, say, he was going up and down the sideline being like, I've got you. We're in this game together. Like, we're going to come back. We're going to win this. And yeah, usually sometimes it's like, okay, like it kind of feels like out of reach, but whatever. Like, let's get out there. Let's try. He was convicted in that. And it makes me wonder, just with Caleb, why was that moment not talked about at all? Did that moment not happen? Was there not, we talk about his leadership. We talk about all the things they've worked on with him. What could he not do to rally this team yesterday? That's a big question that I have coming out of this loss, because ultimately, beyond the penalties, beyond anything else, beyond the lack of run support, the defense, the injuries catching up with the defense, I feel like this loss is on the quarterback. For as encouraged as you can be for the first half of the game, most of the first half, I feel pretty concerned about, can you get 4 really good quarters on a consistent basis from Caleb Williams?
No, 100%. Listen, there's no way you can put this loss on anyone else, because even with all of the mistakes and the other things that we're going to talk about here, you hit one of those passes. Ben Johnson gave you the opportunities. And it's not like it was, you got to make a tough throw here and you got to sidearm it through. This was not last season. You got out of this with 2 sacks, one of which was just on you. As the pocket collapsed, you didn't make a decision and you got hit. The quarterback, Caleb Williams, did not play prepared enough in this first game. And it started off fine, but as Brian Flores started to send more pressure, started to get more people in his face, started to get his feet moving a little bit, he was too unsettled. And I think it threw off his timing. There's a couple of plays, as the third quarter started, Brian Flores started to send a little bit more continuous pressure. And that first drive out of the third quarter, where he ends up trying to get it to Cole Kmet, and he just misses it. He has Colston Loveland. He's watching it, and the pressure starts to close around him, and Cole gets into an open window. It took him a little longer, but he gets into an open window. If Caleb hangs on that throw, you've got a big completion right there. But he didn't trust it. He got to the check down too quick, and he got rid of the ball, and there was nothing there for you. Those are the moments that Ben Johnson has talked about consistently with him from last year to this season, trusting what is around you. If you trust what I'm putting out there, you're going to have the opportunities, and he didn't trust it in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, to win the opening kick, to win the coin toss, to defer to the second half and to go 3 and out, the way that he did, every single one of those passes was not on target, from DeAndre Swift to Cole Kmet to the Zacchaeus throw. Yeah. They had 2 possessions in the third quarter. How does that, such a wasted opportunity for them? And of course they had the pick 6, which broke the game open. At least it was supposed to at that time. Breaks the game open, and then you squander it again, because when you get back out there, you can't do anything. You give the ball back to Minnesota, knowing that a veteran defensive coordinator has seen ways to pick apart Caleb Williams. He spooked him into thinking he wasn't going to blitz him, and then all of a sudden he brings the house, and he's bringing pressure in the second half. So that leads you to 2 possessions in the third quarter where you're not doing much of anything at all. it was so like such a listless effort, and then it was too little too late. That was my biggest takeaway, where you go 3 plays 0 yards, 5 plays 23 yards. What the heck? Like, how can, and I just don't buy the whole idea that, oh, like, you can't script out plays. Why can't you? Why in the second half can you not try to have some sort of game plan that looks similar to what you did in the first quarter? I don't know. NFL teams don't seem to do that. It feels like for a quarterback like Caleb Williams, when he has looked really good and really sharp, when there is a plan for him to follow instead of trying to like freelance this thing, I just don't understand to help him into what Ben has talked about. Get him some easy completions, get him the check down. Why is that not there? I'm not saying that like it's not on Caleb. By all means, I think it is. But I just feel like that was my takeaway of like, doesn't feel like Ben had a pulse on what was going on too. I mean, he said it was hard to call the run game yesterday. Yeah. Of course, penalties factor into that. But I question, where was Kyle Monungai? DeAndre Swift, until a couple runs in the third quarter, was not very good. Caleb Williams is your leading rusher. That's a problem, Pat. Like, you had this rookie who was apparently a workhorse back, somebody you quote unquote trust. And you have him in there for 9 snaps, and it was basically just that one completion, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't feel like that was a very strong, like smart play, no matter what the situation was. But to start out the second half, when you have a clean slate, you are getting the opening kickoff. Where's the run support? Why not try to like take some time off the clock to then build up a lead and then not squander it, because then you're one-dimensional when you're playing from behind.
Yeah, and listen, it got to a point where you couldn't even utilize DeAndre Swift nearly as much in that fourth quarter because you had lost the lead. And DeAndre Swift, 17 carries, 53 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. Listen, that's who Swifty has been.
Whatever.
I think that the third quarter really was surprising to me. 6 carries, 32 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. And you saw him running a lot more aggressive. We didn't see that for the whole game, though. Again, it goes back to the point of, talking about, can you get 4 quarters of play out of somebody? But seeing him start to get into a little bit of a lather, I was ready to come out here today, Courtney, and be like, it was the prove Pat wrong day. Braxton Jones had a great day, and DeAndre Swift in the second half was running as hard as he possibly could. Those are 2 things we haven't seen on a play in and play out basis. But to me, that run game, like, it was all, again, I think these first 4 weeks are going to be very interesting. And this is one that it sucks to lose, but this felt like, all right, Swifty, you're the guy, you're the high paid guy. Let's go out there and see if you can be our number 1 running back on a week in and week out basis. And it wasn't a great display of it. This is a difficult defense to run against anyway. This is one of the top rush defense in the NFL last season. Like, it's going to make it very difficult in those situations, but it does feel like in some of these moments, it's Ben Johnson seeing what kind of team he truly has when the bullets are truly flying. But
it doesn't help you. Like, I get what you're saying.
It doesn't help you in this game.
No,
it doesn't help you in this game, and it's the only game that we could talk about. But I do think you have to go through this process to figure out who's going to be the Bears that are truly a part of the future of this organization. Not to say Swifty is or isn't. I'm not saying that anybody is or isn't based off this first game, but it feels like I'm not going to know what team I have until I put them to the test.
Yeah, and I mean, they failed the first test because they couldn't hold a lead. And part of that are the miscues that we've talked about, the stretches of the game where momentum shifts. And Ben had talked about being on the sideline, what that feels like and how you try to like get it back. You don't try to get it back when your quarterback is struggling, like by putting the ball in his hands and saying, well, carry us to victory. You get it back by trying to run the ball more effectively. And they didn't do that. DeAndre Swift is fine in moments. Maybe I'm like beating like a dead horse here. I feel like it was just a wasted opportunity for the play caller too, to not utilize someone like Kyle Monungai to at least give you a different look in the run game. Like, what was Minnesota so effective with last night? Like, once they finally were able to wear down a fatigued defense, which Caleb on the scrambles kept in the third quarter, kept catching them off guard. He was fatiguing them with his legs. Like, why not try to bring another element that they're not expecting in and hope that is, hope that can, break open your run game and get more than 3 yards a carry or whatever it was for DeAndre Swift. Yeah, I just think that's a problem. You had an opportunity to adjust and it doesn't feel like you did.
100%, 100%. And listen, Ben's got to be better in some of those moments in the second half. I thought that there was a ton of opportunity still there for you to take advantage of, to learn from this and still get out of here with the win. That's why my ire has kind of been focused on Caleb Williams today. But we do got to talk about this, Courtney. I mean, the fourth quarter is where everything breaks loose. JJ McCarthy just ran ragged on this defense, and we got to focus. I know we're so focused on the offense, but defensively, I mean, in the fourth quarter, you talk about a guy getting overwhelmed. We saw Noah Sewell playing a lot of middle linebacker in this game. It looked like Noah Sewell started to get overwhelmed
they were attacking him.
They just started attacking him consistently. And it felt like a weakness there. Now we know normally that's going to be TJ Edwards, but Noah Sewell, again, somebody who Ryan Poles has had a lot of faith in and has kept around. I thought he had a really good game up until that final quarter.
Yeah, that was unfortunate to see for him because he was having the game of his life up until that fourth quarter. And I think it's like I struggle with, like, more than anything, it just felt like the injury. I don't want to blame it on injuries, but it's like defensively they had a good game plan. They really did. They had a good game plan.
Dangbo looked like he's worth every penny.
Yeah, like they had a good game plan for the first half where they rattled the quarterback, and then all of a sudden they couldn't. I think they got fatigued. I think they got in a situation where they really did feel the loss of a TJ Edwards, certainly of Jalen Johnson. I mean, Nashawn Wright got hurt, went in and out of the game. I guess that's to be expected. It's not to say the defense gets off scot-free here. I just feel like they were good until they weren't.
Yeah. And I think that's that. I remember Dennis Allen talking with us, and he was like, you really find out what team you are when you're tired. You really find out what players you're going to have when your team is exhausted. And that's how it looked at the end of that. I thought that Jordan, I keep calling him Jordan,
Jordan Mason?
No, Aaron Jones receiving touchdown that happened where Noah Sewell clearly knew on this wheel route, that's my guy. I've got him. You can see him on tape and on the replay looking right at Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones runs right past him. And those are the moments where, hey, you're tired, you've winded, you've been on the field all day. Are you going to maintain your technique? Are you going to maintain the procedure? Are you going to maintain your gaps? And we didn't see that from this Bears defense. And again, this is week one. There's a lot that goes into it, and this is the first week of real football, if you will. But Noah Sewell's been out there a lot in preseason, and he should be ready to go in moments like that, in my mind.
Yeah, and even with Ruben Hippolyte getting a little run, it just some of the decisions that they make, it reminds me of Monungai. Like, you have the guy up, you clearly trust him enough to do something. Yeah. If you were starting to see Noah Sewell get targeted there, and they were trying to exploit a weakness, why is he? Why not rotate guys in there? Why not try to keep guys fresh? You drafted this guy in the 4th round, like Ruben Hippolyte. Like, why not have him in there more in the second half when you saw that was a vulnerability that they clearly were able to exploit when they started running the ball better? Yeah,
100%. Tough loss here for the Bears. Outside of the things that we've pointed out to this point, Courtney, is there anything else that really stood out to you from the game?
I mean, I know we keep talking about the kicking situation. I mean, and what happened with special teams. I just, think about how many games last year came down to that. The blocked field goal against Green Bay. I don't know if I don't want to play revisionist history with this, but it's just like they cut the Jonathan Kim kid in training camp, maybe a little sooner than they should have. And I know they've paid Cairo Santos, but this just looks bad, Pat. Like 50 yards.
Jonathan Kim couldn't kick though, Courtney. I get it. I get it with the leg. But Jonathan Kim was missing wide right in the greatest conditions on earth.
But when you have 50-yard field goals, look at I was at Steelers Jets over the weekend, and they made a 60-yard field goal to effectively win that game. It wasn't on the final play, but that was the go-ahead score. You got to be I know Soldier Field's a hard place to play, but you got to be able to make routine 50-yard field goals. And we've been told his leg is the strongest it's been. Kind of like
he hit a 58-yarder in the preseason.
57, I want to say, the one against the one
50, somewhere in there,
whatever it was.
It would have been good from 60, according to Richard Hightower.
I feel like that's inexcusable, and I wonder, are these sorts of things when there've been, there was a block against Minnesota last year, and I know last year was last year, but the kicking battery is the same. Is there a bigger issue here with special teams when the game comes down to a 3-point game? Is that Is that something that like needs to be addressed and needs to be a conversation? Because to me, it's not something that you can overlook. You can blame this on Caleb Williams, talk about the inaccuracies, talk about the tale of the two halves, ask whether he's a franchise, ask whether he can be a franchise quarterback, all of the big picture existential things. I think that they have some issues on special teams right now too. When you want to close out games and be able to lean on one phase to help you, they could not. They showed you very early from week 1, hey, we can't do that right now.
Missed 50-yarder, blocked punt. I mean, inexcusable. I guess that's more on the decision of Ben to go tell him to kick it out of the end zone. But like, there was a lot on special teams where you looked at it and you said, if you get a couple of these, maybe we're just going to overtime again and you find a way to win a football game. But those are the opportunities. But I'll be honest, even on that blocked or on that missed field goal at 50, that would have put you up at that point 13-6. You get another touchdown there. That might have been what puts this game away because now you've got a broken-willed team that is down.
No, they would have been up. Like they were already up 17-6 because the missed field goal was the one that went wide right was in that was the first play of the fourth quarter.
Play of the fourth quarter. So it would have been 20-6.
Shoot, man, that's a gap. Like they did nothing to widen the gap. I know it's not a very large gap, but even still, those are points that were yours for the taking. Yeah. And this is not a team that can just afford to be like, yeah, we'll get them back on the next drive. Because very clearly, there weren't many next drives. I mean, look at the third quarter. There were 2 drives there. The fourth quarter, you have drives that go minus 15, if you get minus 15 yards and 15 yards in penalties, you have a 44-yard drive, you have a minus 9-yard drive, an 8-yard drive, a 65-yard drive that ended in the touchdown, which is great. And then the last drive of the game that was 9 seconds because you couldn't operate properly to kick the ball nobody was on the same page after the 2-minute warning of how much time you were hoping to get left back on the clock by kicking the ball through the uprights instead of giving it to the returner at the 7-yard line. He sees Kevin O'Connell like motioning, hey, come out.
Yeah.
Just a bad look.
Yeah. There was a lot of bad here in this first game. Some of the good, I guess, like I said, early in the game, you saw Caleb Williams picking apart some of the disguised zones that Brian Flores was throwing at him. That was something he struggled with last season. Under center, I thought he looked much more comfortable than he did in the shotgun, Courtney. And when they went more shotgun, I started to be like, this is not where his comfort zone is right now in this game. So who would have thought we'd be there week 1 of the season? But there wasn't enough good to get the job done in this one. And there's a lot of stuff they got to improve, especially on the penalty side going into next week. Also, improve the refereeing crew. Like, I'm not blaming the refs for this loss because, like I said, 1 touchdown. But, Courtney, some horrendous penalties in this game. Like,
I mean, the holding – the only one that I would be, like, up in arms about if I'm the Bears is that holding penalty on Darnell Wright.
That one, I would say the PI was ticky-tacky. Nashawn Wright gets his head around.
He got his head around where his hands seemed to be the issue. I don't know. They're going to call that. And I think it's because, I mean, he's always going to look like the sore thumb on that matchup because he's a taller corner who's going to try to use whatever tool he can on the best receiver in the game. So
they weren't afraid to attack him either. So, but listen, he made up for it.
Absolutely.
Pick 6 to the house.
Short-term memory for him, I thought was really important. That the game's a lot worse if they don't have the pick 6.
100%. We'll see what ends up happening as we continue throughout the week. Get to talk to Ben Johnson today. We're doing this podcast before we talk to Ben Johnson, so get to talk to Ben Johnson a little bit later today and hear what his thoughts are after watching the tape. Going to be very intriguing to see. I feel like he's going to light some people up. Who he lights up, I guess. Like, Ben Johnson does not mince words, and he is very honest when he goes to that podium. So we'll see how that all plays out. And, of course, stay tapped in here with the Chicago Bears podcast throughout the week as we not only react to this game, but also get you prepared heading into next week. For Courtney Cronin, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. Let's get this fixed quickly, please. Peace.